Welcome back to our Steve Judd. I'm Sue Brain, and here we are again, Steve, at the end of the year. So obviously, this video has to be a look at what is going to happen in 2025. So do you want to start off? I mean, it's a very retrograde winter we're going to go through, but there's lots of very interesting things happening. So how do you want to kick off with this, Steve?
Well, bearing in mind, we're currently at a state where we've got Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, and Uranus
Yes,
retrograde.
they're all retrograde. Yeah.
Neptune's just stopped going retrograde a couple of days ago,
Yes,
and
you've gone
stopped
direct.
going retrograde. And it's full
Saturn's-
moon in a couple of days.
There's a very interesting opposition actually on the 21st with Saturn right opposite the moon on the 21st. And there's
And
making
that'll be square Jupiter, yeah.
that's an interesting. What do you think about that one? Because that's a lovely mutable T-square.
On the solstice, yeah. Because solstice this year, because of a leap year shift next year, or was it next year? No, last year, solstice is a little bit earlier than normal.
Yeah,
Just called solstice is at
it's 9:10 or something in the
no
morning.
9:20:32
Oh, is it 9? Okay, something like that.
on
Yes.
Saturday morning.
Yes.
So yeah, so I shall be down to where I normally go to watch sunrise at 8:15 and then hang around till 9:20. So that seems a good thing to do. Next year, because as I said to you before we started, all day yesterday I was in a film studio recording lots of videos for all the different signs of the zodiac next year. Now they're going to be we're doctoring them at the moment, color grading them, upgrading them. Got lovely backdrops for each individual one. They'll be ready to go out live to my membership in a couple of days' time, 2-3 days' time. But I'll turn them live to the world on December the 31st. And what's really obvious is that who's getting hit and who's not.
Mm.
And the signs who aren't getting hit, well, everyone's getting hit, of course, but the signs that are going to have it somewhat easier than most are the fixed signs, except for those people born in the first couple of days of the fixed signs because of the Pluto square conjunction opposition, and the people born in the last 2 or 3 days of the fixed signs because Uranus is still negotiating with them.
Yes, absolutely.
But apart from that, it's the end of the mutables, the last 2 to 5 degrees of the mutables, and the first 3 degrees of the cardinals.
But that's Neptune.
That's the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, yeah. And also the fact that Uranus is moving into 0-1 degree of Gemini as well. That's going to be really interesting. I'm looking forward to that one.
What do you feel that's going to play out?
Well, it's a weird paradox because the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, certainly the next 2025 is a kind of the overture, if you like. I mean, Uranus will move into Gemini for 4 months. Neptune will move into Aries for about 7 months. Saturn will move into Aries for about 5 or 6 months, but they're all going to go retrograde again. So by October next year, they're all back in their old signs again, except Pluto, of course. So that's interesting because there's going to be lots of promises and not a lot of substance.
Yeah, I also think there's going to be a lot of bluster.
Especially in the first 5 months of the year.
Yes.
With new administrations coming in worldwide, yes. America, relatively UK, certainly France. So yeah, lots of bluster in the first 5 months with Jupiter in Gemini.
Yes.
It takes being in Gemini. It's full of words and not a lot of substance.
and lies and exaggerations and stories and all
and wit and humor
and humor, that is for sure,
and good communication skills.
Yeah.
But words can sometimes be actions speak louder than words. You know, but there's a number of trigger points next year. There's there's a couple of pretty big eclipses. The full moon and the new moon. Oh God, what sign was it?
Oh,
I know that there's a full moon on the day that Mars is opposite Uranus. Mars in Sag is opposite Uranus in Gemini. I
yeah.
also know there's a new moon on the day that Mars is opposite Pluto in mid-April. So that must be new moon in Taurus and full moon in Taurus.
Yeah, and the solar eclipse in September is definitely Virgo because it sits on my
Yeah,
moon.
that's the 6th of November, I think, or something
Yes,
like that.
absolutely. That's
God,
and
I'm
the
good.
solar eclipse. Yes, it's 9 degrees Aries on March the 20th.
That is there's two big trigger points next year.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Firstly, there's the period around the 8th to the 15th
Uh-huh.
of June
Right.
when you've got Jupiter just moving into Cancer and squaring Saturn and Neptune in early Aries.
Yes.
And then Mercury conjuncts Jupiter, squares Saturn and Neptune for a couple of days. And
Mm,
that's going to be a sudden, like, zip flashpoint.
yeah.
So Mercury conjunct Jupiter, square Saturn conjunct Neptune. But the big one has to be seen as being the period of about the 10th, 11th of March through to basically the start of April. North Node retrogrades back into Pisces, just as Neptune is at 29 Pisces, Saturn is at 25 Pisces, Mercury goes retrograde back to 25 Pisces, Venus goes retrograde back to 23 Pisces, and we've got a 2 week long 5 planet conjunction of Mercury and Venus retrograde and stationary with Saturn, Neptune, and the node. And particularly, I think it's March the 29th, March the 30th, there's that partial eclipse of the sun at 9 degrees of Aries when that Piscean conjunction is at its strongest. So on that day, you're going to have 7 planets within 15 or 16 degrees of each other,
In Pisces. Pisces
with the sun and moon in Aries.
with yeah, absolutely Pisces knows. That's going to be quite interesting. Do you
Oh,
think
that's an understatement. Yeah.
do
Yeah.
you think there's going to be an explosion of sort of self-promoting spiritual gurus around this time, or people professing to know the answers to all things? Extraterrestrial, a lot of extraterrestrial talk is going on at the moment as well.
Oh,
I've
yeah, I'm sick of it already. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot of that going on. And I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, or there's conversations about the fact we're sharing this planet with more than just ourselves, that there's multidimensional maybe beings or invisible beings. It's really interesting, the conversations I've been listening to actually.
Mm. I'm having to be selective. A couple of days ago, I did a podcast. It's live on YouTube now. Of a very old friend of mine from Rainbow Circle days back in the early 90s. And he used to be very heavily into the UFO ET conspiracy theory field. He still is to a much lesser extent, but as he's aged and got children and grandchildren, he's got his feet much more solidly on the ground still. But we're still both very heavily involved in the um, development of the crop circle phenomena. So that was the main theme of our discussion. And yes, this subject of all the drones over the UK and over New Jersey and the Pentagon came up.
Yeah.
But, this is human.
Well, I think it's human too.
Of course it is.
Yeah, I do.
See, aliens, any aliens are going to have to either crack the speed of light by a factor of 10, or they're going to want to spend 100,000 years in journey from the nearest galaxy to us and then just to observe us, just to watch us. No, that doesn't make sense.
None of this makes sense to me, but I do like the idea of them. I like the idea of being visited from another planet. I like the idea that we've got extraterrestrials here. Whether we have or not is a whole different matter, but I love the idea of it.
If they were, you can bet your life within the space of the first couple of weeks of contacts, business
Go
people
home.
would be reaching out to them. Can we do package tours? Yeah. Um,
They would
no,
looked at
I
one
much
looked
prefer,
at
no, the whole idea of a three-dimensional universe is so redundant in my
yeah, it
thinking.
is. Yes,
It's a multi-dimensional universe, and the aliens and the ETs are already here, and most of them are in human form
I think
on
so.
planet now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and we've got this massive planet around us of just many different life forms and species just outside of our range of perception.
Yeah. And the elementals as well. I
Indeed.
honestly believe I've been into places where the land is hopping with elemental energy. You know,
Yeah,
we've just forgotten it. That's all. We've forgotten that they're present and they're here and they're alive. That's why
I
it's so
haven't forgotten
important
it.
for trees and to experience the tree spirits and the house spirits and all of that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
speak to them all the time.
yeah, me too. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think we've
I
had this
mean, they
conversation.
are real. I've actually seen with my physical eyes when I've been absolutely straight a couple of times in my life. I've had direct contact with um, oh, different dimensional beings
Yeah.
indigenous to this planet.
Yeah, I've definitely seen a gnome. We gave each other a fright. This is a while ago, and he was about this tall, and he was poking around the tree, and I was on my bicycle. I was in a beautiful where I was working, and we both went like, oh my God! I swear to God, I saw that gnome. I know I did. I know I did. And then he was gone. Blink of an eye, and he was gone.
Yeah, that's what happens. I just zip back out of
Yeah,
perception
but they
range.
don't
Yeah.
want, they absolutely. But I have.
Anyway, the idea of what's interesting is that Jupiter, with the exception of that date in the middle of June, is relatively low key next year. 5 months in Gemini, then 7 months in Cancer.
Hmm.
But there's no serious aspect pattern going on apart from that 1 to 2 week period. So if there's going to be anything suddenly, now
Mm.
I'm going to use this word very carefully, exploding. And by exploding, I am actually mean suddenly expanding greatly, then it's going to be the second week of June period.
Why do you say that?
Because that's when Jupiter is square Saturn and Neptune.
Oh, yes, of course.
And I
Yes.
suspect that any type of large scale development at that time is more likely to be economic and financial than it is militaristic
Or
because
maybe it's
Jupiter and
an
Saturn,
extension of perception of people.
well, or environmental because of
Yes,
Neptune.
absolutely.
And when we talked earlier about big bangs or explosiveness, I think, well, if it is going to happen, it's going to be in the sea. A lot of cables in the sea at the moment.
Yeah. Do you know what? I had a really weird experience the other day, sitting minding my own business. I have this feeling that something's going to happen in the Indian Ocean.
And I have a
Don't
feeling
know, but that's where my money is.
it might be simultaneous because I have a feeling we are in seeing the final days of the Russian Empire.
Do you think it's going to go out with a bang
I do.
or a
Well,
fizz?
it's not going to be a whimper.
Yeah.
It's going to fragment.
Yeah.
I don't feel that Putin's position is sustainable much longer.
Hmm.
The bloody nose from Syria is going to take a massive hit to his
Yeah.
popularity amongst the military
Yeah.
and
Yes.
the politicians. And
Got it wrong systematically all the way along the right. I mean, I'm not a politician, so I'm talking off the top of my head here. But with Ukraine as well, and now Syria,
exactly,
things are not
exactly.
good for
The
Putin.
the ruble has collapsed.
Yeah,
The economic situation in Russia is tough.
but do you remember that he went into Ukraine with his? There was an opposition in his chart going on with a Saturn opposite Pluto.
Yes,
It's all based on don't do that.
yes.
Yeah, I remember
It's
that.
fascinating in recent weeks how many different astrological students from the Eastern Bloc have been, oh, I've never heard of any of them, incidentally, have been emailing me to say Putin's horoscope is wrong. Here's the correct data. And I'm like, no.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the information I have on Putin's birth chart, which is the recognized birth chart,
Yeah.
was given to astrologers many years ago by his ex-wife,
She
who
probably,
was really into astrology and he wasn't.
right.
So I think that's pretty authentic.
Yeah.
Now, we also we're not looking at the really big picture here because every time there's a Saturn Neptune conjunction or opposition, something happens with the socialist stroke communist world. The rise of the Berlin Wall, the end of the Berlin Wall, the
Yes.
Marx Engels manifesto, the
Yeah.
Bolshevik revolution. There's always something. So I think we're going to see a massive downturn in the situation involving communist Russia. I don't think this. China seems to be more well organized. Or a very polite word for saying controlled.
Well, I was about to say, yeah, I was about to say that word. Yes.
Yes,
I don't think, yes, very, let's call it very organized.
yes. Let's be polite so we don't
Let's
get
be
into
polite,
trouble.
say very organized. Yes, it doesn't feel as chaotic as Russia, does it?
That's a very good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Russia seems to be hanging on by its fingernails at the moment, and I can't help but feel that there's some type of revolution coming. And I wouldn't be at all surprised. I'll be looking at the time when Mars moves across Putin's midheaven and IMC around about late April,
Well,
early May.
that's going to maybe tie in. I haven't seen his chart. I can't remember his chart, but with that very strong Piscean stellium, Pisces Aries stellium, that would be really interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what I'm seeing as a dissolving influence
Yes.
worldwide,
Yes.
and it does because it's Pisces. I am looking at the oceans.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. It's interesting, isn't it? So
Yeah,
okay, that's Russia. So let's just see what happens. What's going to happen to the UK?
we're going to muddle through,
Okay, as we always do.
as we always do.
We always muddle through.
We always muddle through. We'll take the middle path. We're not
Yeah.
going to be America, and we're not going to be Russia, and we're not going to be Europe. So we'll stay mildly independent and hope that no one's looking too intently at us.
Exactly. It just got to go like this if they are going, oh,
Yeah, and we'll just get on with it and keep
yeah.
putting money into um, um, the high universities, so we bring in the top brains and keep up what we're good at, as in managing other people's money, security services, and
Yeah.
hospitality.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It was going to be interesting, isn't it? I mean, there's been a lot suggested about Keir Starmer and his chart, perhaps not surviving, but we'll have to wait and see.
Well, what's the alternative?
Well, exactly what is the alternative?
No, he's an ex-director of public prosecutions.
Yeah, he's not going to go anywhere, is he?
If you can't trust him, who can you trust? He's the ex-top cop. And
Yeah.
he's got no criminal convictions, no stains on his character. The only accusation, I'm not pro him, don't get me wrong, I don't
Yeah.
really like the guy, but there's no stains on his character. And the only real criticism is his lack of personality.
Yes, yes. Well, we'll just have to wait and see, won't we? But it's very
Yeah.
interesting how there's so many sexual stuff is coming up, and people having a massive fall from Greg. I mean, the Greg Wallace thing, I think, is probably just the tip of the iceberg, but there's
Yeah.
definitely things that are going to be exposed, and maybe that again is Saturn in Pisces coming up to Neptune, sort of exposing the deceit.
That's a really good point. Now, I'm probably going to get into trouble for this next statement. I am really not defending any of these people, but there's a difference between the alleged things that Greg Wallace did as compared to Mohammed Al Fayed or Jimmy Savile.
Oh God, yes, absolutely.
We need to keep things in perspective
We
because
and
because this is cancel culture.
this is and we have to, we have to, all of us have, especially if you're not in your you're in a very public persona, is to take responsibility as well. And I think that's probably,
Yes.
what's
Yes.
going on. His chart is really, Greg Rollis's chart at the moment is fascinating. It's really hard angles to
I
also.
haven't even seen it.
No, it's really interesting. Yeah.
And this makes me glad that all of my indiscretions were done before the days of social media. And actually, I got a reason. I'm not very popular with a lot of people, and I don't consider myself a particularly nice person, but I've got a clean conscience.
Yes. Yeah.
I've never set out to hurt anyone or deliberately chose to victimize or persecute anyone because of their race or gender or age or anything about them.
Yeah.
Maybe one or two football teams, but that's another story.
But but it's about behaving appropriately, isn't it? That's the
Yes, it's about being a good human.
yeah. And so I think there's going to be a lot more of that coming up. I
Yeah,
do.
I
A lot
agree.
more
Definitely.
of, oh my God, really? There's so much coming up now with TV personalities that haven't been behaving well. So I think it's going to be quite interesting to, it's almost like the Saturn coming up to Neptune. How is your soul? How
Well, yeah. And bearing in mind that Neptune
handle it?
deals with the glamour
Yes,
and the
absolutely.
glamour, the enchantment, the seduction. See,
Yeah,
there's another way of looking at this. Yes, we can always, everyone's focusing on the negative side of Saturn, Neptune. But there's a double whammy of positives here as well. If you look at it from a positive perspective, then Neptune conjuncting Saturn is going to bring a softening of boundaries, and it's going to help change Saturn's rigid structures into more rubber and elastic instead of concrete and steel, so you can bend the rules instead of breaking them.
yeah. I think
Whilst at the same time, Saturn conjuncting Neptune is going to help bring structure into the imagination and help differentiate between what is just fantasy and what can be actually created from the imagination.
yeah, is that well, I tell you what I think is it's very interesting that the second reading of the assisted dying bill has gone
Mm.
through as Saturn is moving up towards Neptune. I think that's
Yes. Yes, I was looking at the people on the committee
yeah.
yesterday. I was looking at the numbers of people on there, and for the first time, they've got two ministers on there. They're taking it very
Oh,
seriously,
very
but
seriously.
it's going to pass.
Oh, it,
And I've done a video on this for YouTube, and we're fine tuning it now. And we're going to pick the right moment to release it in the next week or two on assisted dying because it's a very controversial subject. But I end up by summarizing. I'm saying, look, we're all entitled to a good life, so we're all entitled to a good death.
yes, yes.
And it's nothing to be scared of.
Well, it's
As
very
you, as you know,
well, it's my work. It's been my work for 30 years. Absolutely.
yes.
What I'm really interested in is I was talking to Felicity Warner. She's the she founded the spiritual soul midwife. She trains death doulas. She's been doing it for years and years and years. And she said it's incredible now how many people want to be trained in it. It's like there's an explosion of interest. And I'm absolutely sure that Saturn in Pisces moving up to Neptune, opening up the unmentionable, but grounding it as well. Saturn is making it real, bringing it into reality. People are being called, like they're being called to astrology. They're being
Mm.
called to work with death and dying, and I love that. I love it.
Yeah. And there's a thing here also, but bearing in mind that Saturn is exalted in Libra. So it doesn't really like being in Aries. And Neptune rules Pisces, which is next door to Aries. And Aries doesn't have a lot in common with Pisces. So neither of those two planets are going to be comfortable in Aries. But because they're together, at least for the first year of this journey,
Yeah.
I suspect they may actually bolster each other and give each other a bit of support. So I don't think 2025 is going to be as bad as most people imagine. I do think that early 2026 is going to see a lot more specific actions, results, and developments that is then going to determine the very long-term future, which will be postulated in 25, but done in 26.
Yes, I think it's going to, we've got another year, haven't we, of sort of turn
Yes, it's ramping up next year,
up.
particularly at the last 2 or 3 weeks of March and the second week of June.
Yeah.
What else I've really noticed when doing all those videos yesterday, bear with me just a second.
Yeah,
I want to show you something. Right.
Out comes the bag.
Right.
The worn out ephemeris. Okay.
That's the basic groundwork,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And this is the upgrade to that groundwork.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right.
Can you just
Now,
explain to everyone what you're showing me?
what I'm showing you there is a list in order of all the different 12 signs of the zodiac,
Wow, that's a lot of
right?
work.
With what each planet is doing to them over the coming 12 months.
Wow.
And what I've really noticed is that with almost every sign, the period from August, September onwards, everything calms down. The donkey work of next year is being done between March and August. First 2 or 3 days of the new year are going to be a little bit dodgy.
Yeah.
Mars opposite Pluto, Moon conjunct Pluto opposite Mars, Mercury clearing its retrograde shadow. And it's a lovely, you know, the most fortunate sign's going to be next year?
I think are you talking about the Pluto trine
No.
no,
That's no.
Neptune?
Uh,
No, you're not talking about that one.
of the 12 signs, 11 out of 12 people are now looking at me going, I'm going to be disappointed here. To my mind, the best sign to be next year,
Oh,
definitely Leo.
Leo. Well, it's
Yeah.
Leo, good old Leo.
There is a particular flashpoint, and it's the new moon in Leo on the Leo. Here we go, the 24th of July. Okay. On the
Okay.
24th of July, you've got the sun conjunct the moon, conjunct Jupiter. Have I got that right? 24th of July.
Nine.
So at the start, no, I haven't got that right.
Oh,
Sorry, it's the 24th of June
right,
and the new moon on the 25th of June. Right.
right.
So this is a new moon at 2, 3 degrees of Cancer,
Yes,
conjunct Jupiter,
yes.
and to a lesser extent, that new moon is squaring Saturn and Neptune, but it's conjunct Jupiter. This is a wonderful time for a fresh beginning and a new launch.
Oh,
Okay. And then
hmm.
the new moon in Leo,
I can see
the
cogs.
new moon in Leo. No, it's not new moon in Leo. The new moon in Virgo is the eclipse we were talking about, or is that the full moon? And that's the new moon.
That's yeah.
Um, Okay, I'm losing my plot here a little bit, so I'm going to digress from this one. There is it's that 24th of June, new moon. It's a great time. So anything you begin, initiate, launch, start afresh on the 24th of June, because the sun and moon are conjunct Jupiter, it should all work. It's a great best launch point of the year, in my book.
Well, all we can do is become more conscious of how how we can attune to the cosmic energies and see how they play out for us, but to take as much advantage of them as we possibly can and clear your shit, do your work on yourself so this can happen. Believe in yourself.
Collectively, as a species, I think we're now heading into a maelstrom. But the thing about a maelstrom's not quite the right word, because when you think of maelstrom, you think of whirlpool, and whirlpool goes down. I'm looking at a spiral that goes equally down and up.
Okay.
And like we're heading into the center of it, but we then have a choice about whether we choose to go up or whether we choose to go down. And it's not a choice of, oh, shall I become dark or shall I become light? No. It's more like, right, am I going to give all my power away by giving into worry and wondering, am I going to get my medication, and is there still going to be food in the shops and everything else? And am I going to be able to pay my heating bills? And what about my social care? Or am I going to go, right, I'm responsible for everything that happens to me. It's my life, my world. Let's make it happen.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm being very, very flippant there, but you get the drift.
Great divides happen. I think we're all making that decision right now. I think this year, the last 2 years, has been all about that, whether or not we are willing to take responsibility, or actually it's too much. It's
Well,
too much this
if,
time.
if I expand on that, then the long term here, as Saturn and Neptune will finally clear Pisces permanently, it might be the end of victim mentality.
Do you know what came to me? It might be the end of the NHS,
Oh, God, I hope not.
or the NHS that just doles out endlessly. The fact
Pills.
that we may have to completely change our relationship with our health and welfare and
I
take
would fully support that if we were to diversify our health system into mechanical, as opposed mechanical organ work, as in helping people with damaged bodies, as opposed to handing out pills,
absolutely.
because the pills are just the profits of the drug companies, and they don't actually do as much help as we would like them to, or as many people think they do. They're placebos, I believe,
Well,
my opinion.
it wouldn't surprise me with Saturn. I think there's so many different connotations with Saturn and Neptune going into Aries, because it's pioneering energy as well. Maybe doing something differently, maybe new ways of working with our spirit, our soul may come to us, and that is about taking responsibility.
Exactly. That would be lovely. So
Yeah, me.
wouldn't it be great if we all became more aware of our
Yeah.
body and our relationship with each other and the relationship with the planet? Because that would give us a much clearer idea on how to manage our lives. And we become less dependent on anyone and anything else
Yeah.
for.
And stop, it's everybody else's fault, but not mine. Well, actually, you are the creator of your reality. That's my understanding of it. And that's Saturn, isn't it? Boom, in Pisces. Take
I think that Saturn moving into Aries is actually going to kickstart a lot of people, not so much into going, right, what do I get, which is what you might think would happen with all that Aries energy. Instead, it's going to be Saturn and Neptune. Well, let's talk about dissolving this
yeah,
I thing
yeah,
and start looking at we.
yeah. Do you know who I've got my eye on? You may not have heard of him, a guy called Zach Bush. He's an American.
Yeah,
He's doing
name.
incredible work. And there is a rumor, I don't know if this is true, by the way, so this is maybe a conspiracy theory, that he could be getting ready to stand for in 4 years' time in the States. That's a rumor. Oh God, wouldn't that be brilliant?
If there's going to be an election in 4 years'
If
time,
there's going to be election in 4 years' time. But what a leader.
politics is going to really change in the next few years. I I love my country. I'm very proud to be British, even though we're responsible for much of the ancestral ills of the world. But at this stage of human history, I like living in an island, a big island, and I like being part of Northwest Europe, or at least tangential to Northwest Europe, because the alternative doesn't bear thinking about.
Yeah. Do
I
you know?
think we have a duty as astrologers and as people with a relatively comfortable lifestyle to do our best to spread hope and
Yeah.
optimism with what's keeping our feet on the ground,
Yeah. Reality. Yeah,
as opposed to conspiracy theories and negativity,
absolutely.
because conspiracy theories are just theories.
Absolutely. And we have to watch the day, everything to unfold and just keep grounded. That's the big thing for me next year, is to keep grounded. Don't go down the rabbit holes. Keep working with, that this sense of, yes, what is unfolding and how can I contribute positively to that? Yeah. Steve, I'm conscious of time. This is
Yes,
a fabulous conversation,
yes,
as always. And we'll see each other in 2025.
we will. I would like to say one last thing to the people watching this. In 9 days' time, it's the Northern Hemisphere winter solstice at 20 past 9 in the morning UK time. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, this is what the Romans used to call the rebirth of Sol Invictus, the relaunch of the sun. The sun is going to start coming back. So go out wherever you are, just go out in the fresh air at 20 past 9 UK time on Saturday morning and just
Mm,
open your heart and open your hands
mm,
to the sun.
yeah. Welcome
What you
it.
got to lose?
Welcome it back.